So I call to order the City of Douglasville City Council Legislative Work Session for today, which is Thursday, June 15th. We'll have our invocation by Pastor LaSonja Richardson of Love Christian Center. Thank you for being here. And then the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Larry Yockey. So I would ask that everyone please stand for the invocation.
Good evening. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for these your servants who have committed to serve your people as city government representatives. Bless them. Lord, be with them as they govern for the good of the community. Touch their bodies that they may be healthy and rested to make wise decisions concerning the city of Douglasville. Please bless their families who serve beside them and support them. And I ask a special blessing on those who are grieving the loss of friends and loved ones this day. I pray your Holy Spirit wrap them in his arms of comfort as they mourn. You said you would bottle up every tear, and while we may not always understand, we still know your will, your way, and your plans are perfect. Lord, we love you, we thank you, and we praise you. In Jesus' matchless name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem and Pastor Richardson. We always appreciate you coming by and encouraging us in your invocation. We'll go through announcements and presentations and then start committee. I'd like to welcome you again to the City of Douglasville's Legislative Work Session. This is a work session where agenda items are presented for discussion and no official action will be taken tonight. Official action will be taken on these items discussed tonight on Monday at 6 p.m. If the business you are here is to discuss is not listed as an agenda item, there will be ample time under the agenda item comments for citizens and delegates section for you to discuss your business. Now, there are just a few protocol items I'd like to go over to make everyone aware of so that we'll have an orderly meeting. I ask that you keep your comments, if you're here to discuss anything, and presentations on a professional level dealing with the facts that are important for this governing body to make their decisions. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. You'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate from this requirement, a second deviation will result in a request for you to leave the chambers and the premises for the evening. Only one person will speak at a time. We ask that you will not applaud or react to the speakers or in any way be disruptive. I'll remind you that we are only required to accept public comments on zoning matters, and we're not required to accept public comment on any other items before this council. If you have a pager, cell phone, iPads, laptops, all of that stuff, any electronic devices, we ask that you would either power them off or put them in silent mode. The agenda items will be handled as follows. The committee chairperson will read the agenda item. Then the person representing that agenda item or the applicant will make his or her presentation first, and that will be the only opportunity that they will have to present the information. Then the mayor and members of the council will probably ask questions of the applicant to seek additional information. After the committee chair will ask the comments or statements, after that, the committee chair will ask for comments or statements from the audience. There will be a maximum time of 30 minutes for those who speak in favor of the agenda item, and the applicant's presentation will have, after it's concluded, and 30 minutes for those who are speaking against it. And each person has 5 minutes limited time. When you come to the podium, please give us your name and address for the record. There's a green form that you should have filled out on the table. We ask that you would fill that out and give it to our deputy clerk, Ms. Sharon. And each person will have one opportunity to speak. This is not a debate time. You just will present your information. So that is it. If there are any questions, hopefully I've covered everything. But we will move on with the agenda item as printed. Public Safety Committee, that's chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
Yes, ma'am. Davis.
Davis.
Okay, I have a couple of items. Adopt an ordinance to amend section 26-26 of the business ordinance to provide that there shall be no permit fees for yard sale permits. And we hear from legal first.
Mr. Chairman, as we discussed in committee, elimination of this fee, which is already very low, will facilitate use of the city's website and the internet to issue those permits, so that there'll be no exchange of money. Will eliminate a lot of folks having to come to the police department to get their permit.
Let's hear from the police department. You do it right there. You good right there.
Thank you. Last year, we had 192 yard sale permits, so the amount that we're collecting is minimal, $384 in a year. If we can eliminate the $2 fee, we can allow the citizens to get their permits online. We will be notified of the yard sales, and we will also know that they have been notified of the sign ordinances and yes, the restrictions on times and the number of yard sales they can have per year. So they're allowed to have 4 per year, and they can only have them for 3 consecutive days. And if we make them register online, we can put all that information there for them to get, and code enforcement can keep up with it and make sure they're not violating the city ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions before we?
Mr. Chairman, we didn't discuss this in committee, but I know we've already had a discussion concerning this item. What if the person wanting to have the yard sale does not have a computer, does not have access to the internet, and cannot apply online? Then what?
They could still come to the police department, and we can print out a form and accommodate
It can
them.
be done at the police department by choice, but there'd just be no fee.
Correct, no fee.
Okay, thank you.
So, do you think we need to put it back on the agenda for further discussions on Monday? We good? Okay. Okay, I'll just put it on the consent agenda for Monday, at the
Thank
council pleasure. Okay. Item B, authorize the Douglasville Police Department to apply for the 2017 Bulletproof Vest Grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, Bureau of the Justice Assistance, in the amount of $12,812.50 for half the cost of the 41 bulletproof vests.
My name is Sue Ann Shaw from the Douglasville Police Department, 2083 Fairburn Road, Douglasville. Each year we apply for the Bulletproof Vest Grant from the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice will reimburse us for half of the expense of the bulletproof vests that we buy throughout the year. We currently pay $625 per vest, and we anticipate buying or requesting 41 bulletproof vests on this grant for the total of $12,812.50. This number, the 41, is determined by the number of vacancies we have, the number of vacancies we anticipate, the 4 new officer positions that we are requesting, and the replacement schedule for the officers that already have vests, which is a 5-year replacement schedule.
Okay. Any question from the council? Mayor and council? Richard, we good? I would like to place this on the consent agenda for Monday, if for council pleasure. Thank you, Councilor Shaw.
Thank you.
That's all I have at this time, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilman Davis. We'll move on to Community and Economic Development Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a couple of items tonight under Community and Economic Development. First is to appoint Sandy Gamble to the Restaurant Post 1 on the City of Douglasville's Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB, Advisory Board for a 2-year term extended through December 31st, 2018. Were you handling that, Ms. Hampton?
Yes, sir. Councilman Adams, you will recall that you and the council interviewed Ms. Gamble at your 5:00 p.m. meeting, and that would include the second item as well. That was at your previous meeting at 5:00. If you all are interested in having them continue on in those roles, that's where they will serve.
We do have her resume on the screen or on our internet site here with us. If you'd like to look at it again, we did in fact have those interviews, and we would do a straw vote. Is that correct, Ms. Hampton, on Monday night? Is that what happens, or are we able to put that on the consent agenda as a renewal?
There is no need for a straw vote because you have just one candidate for each of these slots, unless you all would like to provide other names.
If the council would allow, I'd like to place this on the consent agenda so that we can get this reappointment completed, unless there's a problem with that. Okay. Item 2, appoint Michnikov Schaefer to the Hotel Post 2 on the City of Douglasville's Convention and Visitors Bureau, CVB, Advisory Board for a 2-year term extending through December 31st, 2018. Ditto on this interview also. We did those actually on the same night a couple of weeks ago, and if there's no objection to that, I would like to also place that on the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just point out that if we could, for the listening audience who wasn't in our board meeting, that the folks who applied for a certain position, one for retail, one for hotel.
That's correct,
And
yes.
so they're the only applicants that applied for those positions, and they're very, very particular, so.
Very good point, Mr. Miller. And of course, only those persons that are involved in the hotel industry or in the restaurant industry within the city of Douglasville are able to apply. And that's a very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, I have nothing else under Community and Economic Development then, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Planning and Development Committee. That's also chaired by Councilmember Mark Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have several items tonight. First, we will hold a public hearing and consider a request for a special land use permit for a church or place of worship for property zone CG General Commercial, being 1.75 acres at 5848 Bankhead Highway, land lot 824, District 18, Section 2, Parcel 1, application by Turia Folks. Understand the mayor has already explained to our meeting attendees how this will work. So this will be a public hearing that would have potential people speaking both for and against, a total of 30 minutes each, 5 minutes per, and we will start out with the applicant giving their case concerning this. This is, as I understand it, an application for a renewal, and so we will be speaking about any terms or limits on that after we have the discussion. Yes, ma'am. Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, good evening. My name is Tari Folks, 5848 Bankhead Highway, Suite F. I am the senior leadership at Youthful Expressions Family Worship Center. The permit usage would be for worship service. We are there twice a week minimum. We hold services twice a week, and we hold services throughout the year as well. We have been active in the community with several of the schools. Sweetwater is one of them, and Beulah Elementary, where we've serviced them for different holidays. And we're here to serve the community in our ministry.
Thank you very much. Thank you for what you do in the community, Ms. Folks. I appreciate that. I want to make sure that we have anyone that would like to speak either for or against the application or the renewal, give them an opportunity. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application for renewal? If not, is there anyone here to speak in opposition to this renewal? Okay, I might add, we'll close the public hearing then, since there is no one here to speak either for or against other than the applicant. Ms. Folks, I understand that this special land use permit began back 5 or 6, even 7 years ago. Is that correct?
Yes, that I was made aware of not too long ago. Our ministry has actually been there for 6 years.
6 years, okay.
Yes, sir.
And your original permit has expired, and you've come in and requested a renewal of the same. Is that correct?
Been correct, yes,
Okay.
requested.
One
yes.
question that I would have, and I'll ask Public Safety this, has there been any reason, any problem, or any issue with the applicant at the location that you all are aware of, or anyone on council, or any input that we might have just for our own information? Ms. Hooper, are you wanting to make a statement?
Yes, sir, Councilman Adams, I can speak to that. Devin Hooper, 6695 Church Street, Douglasville, Georgia. The only thing that came back from the impact statements was from code enforcement. On the property, there were 3 citations. I've talked to the code enforcement about that, and he said that it had nothing to do with the church. It's a suite, so there's several residents or occupants within that building. It dealt with dumping in their dumpster, but he said none of that ever dealt with the church specifically. The
Okay,
church
thank you.
Never
Thank
part
you.
of that.
That helps clarify that, because it being a strip center with numerous tenants, then there's no way to identify or no way to say that it was the church that was causing that issue then, correct? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Hooper. Comments, questions from council?
Mr. Chairman, I had a quick question. You're in the same plaza as Stoddart's, the gun?
Yes,
That's not a problem? You don't hear anything, or?
never.
No, it's fine, okay.
Stoddard's, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Mayor, is in a separate building
It's-
rather than within the suite in this, it's
right.
next door,
It's
I
not
think
in
would
the
actually.
suite. That's correct.
That's correct. Okay, so it is a separate and distinct building in and of itself for the gun range.
That's correct.
And you are in one of the suites within the complex there,
That's correct.
on the corner of Bankhead and Deer Lee.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Any other question or comment? Okay, we appreciate you coming in, Ms. Folks. We will take this up on Monday night, and we'll consider a renewal of this, and we'll set a limit as to the term, since it is a renewal and we've not had any problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item B, hold a public hearing and consider a request for a change in zoning from DCD, Design Concept Development District, with a base zone of R3, single-family detached residential district, to amend the concept plan to reduce the rear yard setback requirement on the north side of the property a distance of 15 feet from the required 35 foot for a remaining rear setback requirement of 20 feet for a principal structure in R3 zone for 1.22 acres in land lot 77, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 102. Application by Justin Stockman and Aaron McCullough. Sir, you've come forward in representing this application. Would you give us your name and address for the record?
I'm Justin Stockman. The address is 6554 East Church Street, Douglasville, Georgia.
Thank you, sir. And you are here to represent the application. What can you tell us about this situation? What is the reason for this?
Well, we're asking for a setback because we want to minimize the impact on the stream. So we want to set the house further back on the lot. And in order to do that, we're going to need a variance.
Okay. So this is for a variance of 15 feet from the required 35 for rear yard.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Mr. Stockman, bring us up to date on this. If I recall in our notes, this is the property where two lots were combined into one in Brookmont a couple of months ago in order for there to be able to be built one house on the property, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that's the reason for a larger size piece of property, 1.22 acres, than what would normally have been there in Brookmont. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
correct? Okay,
And we did that in order to ask for just one variance.
I understand. So you're combining two lots, that's been done, and now you're needing a variance on the setback so that you can sit this house further back on the property away from the street.
That's correct.
Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? If not, is there anyone here to speak in opposition? Not seeing anyone, I will close the public hearing, and then I will ask for any comments. Anyone on council that may have any comment or question of Mr. Stockman concerning this application?
Is there a homeowners association involved in this particular subdivision?
Good question.
Is there a homeowners association?
I cannot for sure answer that question. I know it's a platted subdivision. Curley Family Homes, they own several subdivisions.
I can answer that question, Mr. Yaki. I know that there is a homeowner association in Brookmont. I do some work for them, and they are active in their neighborhoods.
Because I was just wondering, have they approved this? I think the association has to be involved in this type of change also.
I'm not aware of what their requirement would be as far as the homeowners association. Basically, they have come in and requested that we have two lots combined into one, so we'd actually have less homes there within the development. I don't know, and I was going to ask when my turn came about, what sits behind this property that you would now have a 20-foot setback from the rear yard rather than 35, Mr. Stockman? Is there a green space? Is there another pod of houses? What is there?
I believe it's another phase of the subdivision that hasn't been built out yet, so
Okay.
it's just a wooded area.
Okay. Other questions? Comments? Okay. We will take this up on Monday night. I appreciate you coming in and making that application with us, and we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much. Item C. And this is connected, hold a public hearing, consider a request for variance to reduce the 50-foot required minimum setback for regulated activities from the bank of a regulated stream in the Anawake Creek Watershed Protection Overlay District of Zoning Code subsection 3.22.04C 1E for a variance of 25 feet on the northeastern side of the property for a remaining required buffer of 25 feet to allow construction of impervious surface not closer than 25 feet to the stream, to eliminate the 25-foot additional stream buffer requirement in zoning code subsection 3.85.02 for a variance of 25 feet, leaving no buffer area required by this subsection, to allow impervious cover at the same location, and to reduce the additional 50-foot undisturbed natural vegetation stream buffer requirement of zoning code subsection 3.85.01 for a variance 25 feet for remaining buffer requirement of 25 feet. To allow development activity on the south side of the property for 1.22 acres, land lot 77, District 1, Section 5, Parcel 102, application by Justin Stockman and Aaron McCullough. Again, Mr. Stockman, I'm assuming you're representing this part of the application. In addition, if you would, you've already given us your name and address for the record. Would you explain to us how this ties together, please?
Well, this is asking for the variance on the stream buffer, just so the combined lots can now be buildable.
I understand that this 25 foot that you're asking to be removed is an additional 25 feet in our city zoning code that is required over state minimum. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
Ms. Littlefield, is that the way you understand it?
Yes, sir, I understand it, that it would take it down to the state minimum.
To the state
requirement.
minimum. Okay. Okay. It is a public hearing, therefore, is there anyone here that would speak in favor of this application? If not, is there anyone here that would speak in opposition? Is there any comment from council or questions concerning this application for Mr. Stockman? Hearing none, if you'll come back on Monday night, we'll take this issue up for a vote.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
Adams.
Stockman. We appreciate it. Item D. Adopt a resolution enacting a 90-day moratorium on accepting applications for rezoning of certain areas of the city near Thornton Road. Mr. Hooper, I understand you're here to speak with us about that. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a moratorium that has already been placed in the past on this area. It's an area that we're doing a quality overlay district for to sort of revitalize the area. This moratorium will run out the 21st of this month. We are in the process right now. We already have the text for the quality overlay district laid out and revised the way that it will be going forward. What we're waiting on right now is to finalize the map to attach to it so that we can be sure of what the area will be for this quality overlay district. I've been in contact with the GIS department, who we contract out to do our GIS maps. They're going to be working on getting us a map of just the city parcels, hopefully by middle of next week at the latest. And so therefore we can put the text and the map on y'all's agenda items for the 29th and July the 3rd.
Okay, thank you. Is this a part of the study that has been done, and is it connected to the moratorium that the county has in place concerning this area now, so we're still running concurrent with them?
Yes, sir, it is. That moratorium is the same area out on Thornton Road that they're doing the study on. We're staying concurrent with them if on the 29th and the 3rd, if we actually adopt this overlay district, then the moratorium doesn't have to continue until its full 90 days. This is just a way to give us some more buffer until we can get the full information and the map on hopefully the 29th.
Pull the text and the map together all in one then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
And this is what the county did a presentation on at Citizens Hall that I think everybody was, just about everybody was there.
Yes.
Okay. Seems like a good plan.
Just a quick question. Go ahead, Mr. Siegel.
Just to point out that the county is actually voting on this coming Tuesday, so they are not extending the moratorium. They don't need to.
But we need an
We
additional
need
few
to because
days.
we've got more steps in the process
Okay.
before we could actually take action.
But we
They're-
could,
the study as it is, the map that they're using laid out the entire county and everything.
Yes.
So we're just asking them to carve out the city parcels so that we have a map of just the city
okay.
items that are parcels that will be affected.
And as you've stated, Mr. Hooper, we could then stop the moratorium at such time as we vote on it, so that we would then cease the entire moratorium, county and city.
That's
Basically,
my understanding, Ms. Littlefield, is that correct?
Got it, okay. Any other question or comment?
And it'll have to be advertised in the paper,
Yes.
and so there's a
through the
lot
zoning
of
board.
steps in our
Yes, sir.
process.
Once,
Correct.
on the 20, and I apologize, I didn't clarify that. The 29th will just be a referral to the zoning board for
Okay.
that text. So it'll go, if y'all vote on it July 3rd, it'll go on the or the zoning board on their August meeting. And then it'll be back before y'all in August to hear it again for a final approval or denial.
So just to clarify for our viewing audience, then the reason that we need an extension is because we have, as Mr. Siegel has mentioned, steps that we have to go through our zoning board and then back to us for final vote. And
Yes, sir.
we need those days to have an extension in order to do that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other question? Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there a reason why we could not place that on the consent agenda?
Fine.
Would we do that, please?
Mhm.
Thank you. That's all that I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Parks and Recreation Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Chris Watts.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item tonight, but before we do this one item, I don't know if it's appropriate at this time, since at the end of our committee meetings, we were discussing something, and I just wanted to make sure that council could, if they had any feedback on our discussion about the rental fee lease agreement with the Tiger Cubs, if there was any feedback from council that you'd like to share before we move on to our next item.
Were you going to make comments first?
If he was any questions, we could field any specifically.
Yeah, I have a question. The renovations that the Tiger Cubs made to the Clark Gorey building, do you know specifically what the renovations were and what the cost was?
Travis Landrum, 8830 Gurley Road, City of Douglasville. Unfortunately, I do not know specifically. If I could defer to Mr. Jones, if he could add specifically any of that information to answer that question.
That's the only question I have, Coach. Councilman Watts, I'm sorry.
Any other council members that would have any feedback? This won't come up for vote until Monday, of course, but I just want to make sure everybody had an opportunity that maybe felt rushed before we left the room.
Councilman Watts, would like to have further discussion about
Sir?
like to have further discussion on this, the rental fees.
Okay, our discussion, what other questions do you have?
No questions, okay.
Yes, so does the council want to hear from Mr. Jones, or?
Mr. Landrum said he would refer to Mr. Jones in regards to my question, and that's the only question I have at this time.
Okay. Mr. Jones, if you don't mind approaching and giving us your name and address for the record, and answering the question from Councilmember Danley about renovations done to the Gore rebuilding.
My name is Charles Jones, 7764 Melanie Drive, Douglasville, Georgia, 30134. Renovations of the building, we probably put in about $5,000–6,000. We put new toilets, put dividers in the bathrooms. We did the floors. We did the kitchen counters. We put new ceiling fans. We just remodeled the room. If you go in the door, the room to the right.
Mm-hmm.
We remodeled the room to the left. I mean, we put in some work, some parts that was falling down. We put in new panel in the building. It was basically, storage. And then like on Saturdays or Mondays when we do our practice, the kids come in, look at film of their games, basically trying to get them prepared for the next level of football. I mean, so we've put in quite a bit of money, so.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones, over what period of time did you all do those improvements to the building, first of all?
When, I say 2 years ago, when we first got the building, it was stated, you know, hey, you guys go in and repair, do the repairs. We'll take all the stuff that was in there out, and you guys do repairs to it. You're more than welcome to use the building. So we went in and prepared, you know, did all the repairs that we need to do to bring it up. And
What amount of money did you estimate? I'm sorry, I may not have heard.
we put in anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 into that, plus, you know, paying the person to do the work, and plus, you know, all the stuff that we put in.
So then over the last couple of years, if you take that $5,000 figure and divide it by 2 years, you would be looking at somewhere around $200 a month. The equivalent of $200 a month you would have paid for rent for the building if you were renting it and not having done those repairs.
Basically, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Just a question for Mr. Landrum. Do we have is there a need, I mean, is there a desire, who else would want to utilize this building? I mean, has there been any?
No, sir. If the Tiger Cubs were not currently occupied or using that facility, the Parks and Recreation Department doesn't have any immediate use for it or any potential interested other organizations that would like to use it. So it would more than likely stay dormant if not used by.
Is it vacant? So, sorry, I mean, I didn't mean to.
Yes,
I was thinking it before you said it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to correct you.
Well, I'd just like to point out that the fact that the Tiger Clubs have been using it, you know, the Parks and Rec, I'm assuming have not, you know, there's been no reason to seek use for the building. You know, how could it be used, assuming that it was available?
Okay, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Right quick. Before the Tiger Cubs used the building was just for, you guys had, junk just stored over in there. So therefore, it wasn't being used for anything. So.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman. Okay.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I was going to say, in 2000, when I was on council 2002 through 2006, the Goree building was a computer lab, and it was a mentoring and extension for education, extended education. So Councilman Mitchell and myself, we had a groundbreaking ceremony. Computers were donated, so it was a computer lab at one point. And before Mr. Landrum was appointed, in the interim of our parks directors, Omega Psi Phi fraternity wanted to use the facility, and that was less than a year ago. And they were willing to pay to have meetings, and they're doing you want us to use the community house now, but they were looking for a facility, and that was one facility that they did have interest in. So, but they understood it was just for Tiger Cubs. So I think there would be more interest, but it's understood in the community that the facility is for the Tiger Cubs. So I would say it isn't that no one wants to use it. It's just it's already being used, and people think that is the use for the facility.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other comments?
I have a comment. You know, if there are other interests, then I'd like to see how can both, I mean, the Tiger Cubs still utilize the building for space if they're not going to utilize it for anything else, and then other, you know, tenants or organizations want to use that. But I thought I heard you say earlier that if anyone else wanted to use that, there's no way to secure the equipment and the helmets. Is that correct?
Correct. The current structure of the facility would not support that. The storage area is pretty much open and exposed if you walk into the center of the facility. So currently it wouldn't be able to support that. Not saying that it couldn't be brought up to that code, but currently it's not in that state.
So can we look at, because I don't want, I want to be fair across the board, but also if there are other organizations that want to utilize that building, can we look and see what would it take to get it up to code and to secure it, still be able to secure the equipment, and then look at the cost if an organization wanted to use it, the Tiger Cubs wanted to use it. I personally think, just from the history of what the Tiger Cubs have done, and Councilman Adams, that was a very good point in regards to over the duration of the years versus how much the cost would have been to rent versus how much you put into it. So I would like to see if organizations want to use that, how can we make it work and bring it up to code so that it can be used for storage. The Tiger Cubs is a very unique team in Douglasville. I did some history, and I didn't know that it started back in the 60s. That was before my time. You played for the Tiger Cubs? And I understand that and I have to kind of elaborate for those that don't know, but one of the coaches that coached initially is still living. And there, from what I see and what I haven't been able to find, it is the only team in the county and the oldest football team in the county and the city. But however, there's really no solid record of history that's documented. So it's a very unique. Also, I had an opportunity to share with Mr. Jones some statistics that the Tiger Cubs have produced in the children that typically, if they were not in this group, in the area that is being served, they probably would be doing some mischief. But I'm excited to know that there was 100% of parent participation in 2016, which brought more increase of parent-child interaction. So I really would like to look at, before we just make a decision of the 500, because I think initially you all had agreed on 250 and then it went to 5. Is that right?
Well, we didn't agree on anything.
Or y'all talked about that?
There was just ideas that were brought out.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. Yeah. So I just want to see if there are other organizations that we don't close the door on that, but see how you can bring it up to code and what would the cost be so that we can make it work.
I'm sorry. One thing I'd like to point out is the proximity or the closeness of the season is in other words,
right.
We're at that point where we're going to need to do the lease. Some of these things might take a little time to find the answers to, as you're pointing out. So I just want to make sure we had good feedback tonight before we vote on it on Monday. And
Coach, if I might ask another question, and I don't know if I didn't hear something or if some of us have not heard, the building is not conducive to having multiple users at any time because of the amount of need that the Tiger Cubs have on a continuing basis throughout the year for the storage of all their equipment. Am I correct in that statement?
Yes and no.
In other words, Mr. Jones, you don't want to have to move it out on any given Friday night in order for someone to rent it on Saturday for a wedding reception or for the sorority to use it. Mm-hmm. That would not be.
Basically, right now, if you go in, the room to the right, we went in and designed that room for helmets and shoulder pads.
Okay.
So that's basically what's stored in there. Right.
And what percentage of that building does that room take up?
It's the right side. The rest of the
I don't know how many square feet are in the building.
What's that?
The building is roughly around 2,100 square feet.
Okay.
So that's what probably, that one room to the right is what, maybe 600 square feet?
A fourth of it, maybe?
No, it's not even close.
Well, that'd be 500 square feet, Mr. Jones.
Yeah.
Well, no,
A fourth of 2,100.
Smaller than that. I mean, that
Okay.
room to the right is not that large.
What I'm trying to get to is, does the city, and I think, Coach, you made a good point, does the city need to get involved in going in and doing improvements to the building in anticipation of renting it to someone on a short-term or a weekend basis when that's not going to be applicable and helpful to you because you may have to vacate the building on any given weekend for the purpose of that other rental? Is the income going to be worth the expense it would have to go to privatize your part of it? That's my question. Having said that, Tiger Cubs have been in that building a long time. We want them to continue. I do. Mm-hmm. And I want to make it fair for everyone. But at the same time, I don't think it's feasible, and I would hope that you all would help me here, to start splitting the building up and trying to hold part of it for tiger cubs and rent part of it out. What are we gonna spend? And I think there's a misnomer there of bringing it up to code. I'm assuming it's in usable condition as it is. If not, I'm assuming that Mr. Mettler would let us know we have some work to do.
Right, and Councilman Adams, the reason why I made that comment is because I was just, I'm making a comment from what the mayor had stated, that organizations did want to use it. But what you're saying does make sense, but I just didn't want to close the door and say, just make a statement stating no other organization would have the opportunity to utilize it. But I understand what you're saying in regards to cost and time.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Watts?
Yes, sir.
Could I finally speak?
Yes, sir.
Yes. We upgrading JD in the near future. And we don't want to put out a whole lot of money, then have to spend more money. And the little old house ain't big enough for 2 or 3 people to be in. Go in there when all them kids slinging them shoulder pads and helmets. You don't want to be in there.
Come back out.
And sometimes they be just a little smelly because they done, and then we got to spend money clean it up and rent it out for the next day. We got to do better.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I've had the opportunity to be involved with the Tiger Cubs, and sometimes there's just some intangibles that you can't quantify. I think we need to really look at that. We've got to understand there's a positive attribute that the use of this building gives to those kids who get discipline, who get athletic, this serves a real purpose in our community. And I think we need to address that. I think it's, sometimes and I'm real conservative about things, but from time to time you got to look at the intangibles that are involved. I think there are many involved in this. We have lots of places for people to rent, but I think this is mostly conducive to the Tiger Cubs.
Mr. Chairman, I have another question, replying to Mr. Miller's comment, and I think there was some, Mr. Landrum, I think there was some comparison to what mini warehouse space would cost off-site for Tiger Cubs to rent. Probably that would be the closest physical location outside of the park for them to use. Did you say approximately $75 a month, and for how many square feet?
Well, it was roughly it was 2 sizes. I looked at 10 by 10s and 20 by 20s. The price range was roughly from 75 to about 150. And it was just something I was using as a price point in reference to storage.
So for 400 square feet in an off-site location, $150 a month, and there would be no utilities charges, but then there would really be no utilities other than possibly a 110 plug-in. We'd be asking the Tiger Cubs then to go off-site to a 20 by 20 space to store I'll do whatever they wanted off-site and not in the park, okay? So using your analogy, 400 square feet at $150 a month off-site. I agree, we need to do something. I'd like to see the Tiger Cubs stay there, but at the same time, we're working to separate ourselves as a city from affiliation with any of these sports groups, are we not?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That was the reason we started all of this, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I would like to see us treat the Tiger Cubs fair plus, by all means. I'm 61 years old, and I did play Tiger Cubs for one spring training. I found out really quickly I was nicknamed Pee-wee for a reason. But having said that, and I appreciate Mr. Jones and his continued dedication to it, we also have to be sensitive to what that space could do were it being improved and rented to someone else. So I'm not sure where we stand with the amount of rent. Obviously, these gentlemen have discussed it, and there are 2 different amounts that have been talked about. For that many square feet, we just need to come up with an equitable amount. So I think, Coach, what you're looking for is some information as to how we as a council feel about setting a rental rate for them, and there's obviously some question as to that amount that has been suggested.
I'll stop. Thank you.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Madam Mayor.
It's a lot of conversation, so we're excited about this and really putting a lot of thought into it. So I do agree with Councilman Miller and Councilman Adams and everyone else, the comments that have been made, Councilman Byrd Danley and Davis. So we just need to come up with a fair price, because in conclusion, with just the space, you also have meeting space and space to look at film. So that quantitative number is not just for storage, but also for meeting space. And separating ourselves from affiliations, we need to be fair across the board. The renovations, we appreciate that those were done to the facility, but of course you were using the facility. So they were done for the benefit of the Tiger Cubs to be able to go in and use the facility. And you weren't paying any rent. But we can't continue to go on with any organizations not paying anything for city facilities. So there has to be a price that is fair across the board for the Tiger Cubs and to the city, because we're, of course, expending use of city facilities. So we do want to keep Tiger Cubs there. We want you to stay for as long as you need to stay. And it's exclusivity, really. No one else can use that space. So we just need to come up with a price that's fair for everyone across the board. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for that input. So if everybody feels like they've had their input heard and we can move on to the next item, is this something that we can or would want to put on the 5 o'clock agenda for final discussion before we vote on Monday night? I'm not willing to necessarily put off the vote, but I am willing to discuss if we want to discuss more of the amount.
I just think that the prices were two different. It's like a car salesman. You slide one price across the table. So Mr. Jones is $250, Mr. Landrum is $500. So we just need to come, maybe Chair, you can have some discussion with Mr. Landrum after,
Yes, ma'am.
and Mr. Jones, and you come up in committee with a fee, if it's $300, $350, or whatever, with utilities, and you present that, and we'll vote on that
Yes,
on
ma'am.
Monday. So
Okay.
we can put it
Mr.
to bed and
Chairman.
let them be prepared for the season. But
Mr.
we don't need to
Chairman.
drag it out.
Mr. Chairman, are you pushed? Do we have a time limit, Travis?
Well, with the timeline of when they operate for their season, it would be best if we did it as soon as possible. But of course, as mentioned, we wouldn't want to put a rush on it.
Right.
And just wanted to revisit a comment. There wasn't a particular number that was suggested by the Tiger Cubs.
Okay.
As I did my research, those were some of the numbers that I came up with, basing it off of information in the ordinance and then from research with the forces storage and with the other leasing agreements. So it wasn't an item presented by the Tiger Cubs. Those were just various numbers that I came up with that I wanted to present to Mayor and Council.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Jones, did you not want 250, or what was you want zero, really?
No.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. No. We discussed.
Mm-hmm. Because I did hear $250.
No.
Yes, sir.
First we discussed
Mm-hmm.
a dollar. Then they said they came to some of the council members, sat down and talked about it,
Mm-hmm.
and looks on their face let him know, not a dollar.
Yes, sir.
Then we discussed $200,
Mm-hmm.
and he brought that to some of the council members, and he wasn't too filling some of the council members on that.
Yes, sir.
So I've taken to my board
Mhm.
one time that we discussed a dollar,
Mm-hmm.
and I took to my board one time we discussed $200.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm coming back today,
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting $500.
Mm-hmm. So did your board approve 200?
Yes.
Okay, so
We
we're someplace
looking for
between
nothing for
200 and
free.
500.
Excuse me?
We're in some place between 2 and 5.
Douglasville Tiger Cubs, we could probably afford $200 a month. You have kids out there, true enough, and like I discussed with Travis, you have kids out there that's sponsored. You have some kids out there that play for free based on the income. Parents bring their income in,
Mm-hmm.
and we look. The board goes over their income, and just like free lunch, they have to bring their free lunch slips in.
Mm-hmm.
Parents have to bring in if they're getting assistance from the government or whatever. They have to bring that in to look at that.
Yes, sir.
So you do have kids that comes out there that plays for free.
Understood.
So therefore, $500 a month for
It's too costly for you?
very too costly.
And you have the fee to play is
Fee to
$120,
play is $200.
$200 times
Yes.
how many kids?
It all depends on how many kids, based on 160, 170 kids.
Okay,
But out of the 160,
Times.
170 kids, some of those kids are not paying.
mm-hmm. Okay. So maybe 150 kids, and so somebody sponsored out of 170, 150 or so
Right.
times
and
200.
then some of those kids have siblings, so they're cheaper than that.
Mhm.
And you
Okay.
still have to pay referees. Well, you pay referees a week, $3,000 something a week.
Mhm.
It all depends on how many games you have at home.
Yeah, concessions though help.
And
with that.
concessions help,
Yes.
but when concessions, and a $1 hamburger here, $1 fry here, there. I mean, it's not like they paying like you're going to the Braves game.
Yes, sir. Okay, just trying to get some information so that we come up with some quantitative data to make a fair assessment for a fee.
Mr. Jones, are y'all, are the Tiger Cubs a 501c
Yes,
organization?
501(c), yes.
And are you using the concession stand for something?
We use the concession stand for concession stand. I mean, for
And is there a charge for that?
yes, there's a charge for that.
Mhm.
So we're charging you for that?
I have to pay you guys for to use the concession stand.
And
yes.
how much is that? Do we know? That's $250 per game
That's for the season.
for the season.
For the
For the whole season, it's just $250?
That's for 4 weeks. You have 4 home games.
All righty. So, Mr. Chairman, that would be my recommendation, is that you have conversation with the director and come up with a fee and present that to us in committee next Monday, the 19th, and we vote on the 19th.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
I'm sorry, Coach, just for clarification, first I wanted to apologize. I did not mean to say that you all had agreed on that amount, so I apologize for that. But in the ordinance, does the ordinance say 250? Okay, I just wanted to,
It states for storage space and/or concessions.
okay, that's all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So the ordinance
If
says 250.
We give 2 checks, 250, 250, total of $500.
Well, one of the things I do want to make mention of, we mentioned the ordinance and storage facility. That building has not been identified as storage facilities. So when Travis mentioned the amount and he showed me the ordinance, I said, well, we need to take a look at that, because just as Mr. Jones has described that he's utilized the building at his use for whatever purposes the Tiger Cubs are utilizing it, it is not just for storage. So when I'm looking at that as a staff person, I can't recommend to you all to utilize that ordinance to apply. Now, however, you all can decide whatever you choose to make a recommendation for the Tiger Cubs to rent, but I would say, unless the legal staff tell me that that's not the case, I wouldn't look at that ordinance as a place to start. You charge whatever you feel like you want to charge for the building, not based on the fact that it's storage or not storage. That would be my recommendation.
Right, and I thank you, Marcia, for clarifying that, because she's right. If the ordinance is specifically for storage, then 250 is for storage. So, Mr. Jones, if you're going to use that building outside of storage, that's what we've got to look at.
I understand.
Yeah, outside of storage.
Okay.
Healthy
Are we
discussion.
good?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you,
Chairman,
Mr. Jones.
Oh,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Siegel.
I haven't
sorry.
said anything yet. I'm feeling left out.
Well,
Oh, we apologize.
don't-
You're on the end. We just kind of
don't feel left out. Just jump in there.
unintentional.
What I'm seeing us here doing is negotiating in public on something like this, and we typically don't negotiate, first of all. Secondly, not in a public meeting like this. I just wanted to go on the record saying I think we're setting a precedent, and it makes me very uncomfortable. That's all.
I didn't feel in regards to the ordinance, I didn't feel like I was negotiating. I'm not negotiating a rate between Mr. Jones, Tiger Cubs, and the city of Douglasville. That's not what I'm doing. I'm asking specific questions to clarify the ordinance and Ms. Hampton specifically defined that, and we were just asking, I was asking questions about what the usage was. So I am not negotiating the rate.
I'd like to, unless there's further discussion, I would just like to say that we're trying to do the right thing for the resources that the city has access to and has built and maintained, and we're trying to be responsible. I think that's where that was our starting point with Travis, trying to figure out a proper amount based on other rental agreements. But I do see Mr. Siegel's point. So I don't think that we're negotiating. It may sound like that, but I do think that Travis and I will have some discussion and come up with an equitable amount. But I feel led by what I feel like the mayor. I feel like she is saying, and I agree with her, that we have to do the right thing with the spaces that we have, and still serve the community and do the right thing for the Tiger Cubs and people that are using whatever we have for them to use.
We'll take into consideration everything that's been said and try to govern ourselves in the future in a responsible way, not being offensive to anyone. But sometimes it's not just black and white. You have gray areas. You need to have more discussion about that. But we want to be sensitive to everyone, and we appreciate all the comments that were made by council members. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on to our one item under Parks Recreation tonight. Item A, to authorize the mayor to sign a contract with True Green LP to provide turf maintenance services to the city parks for an annual term. Mr. Landrum.
Thank you, Coach Watts. This is the renewal of a recurring contract that we have for maintenance turf throughout the park system. Attached, you will see the 3 quotes that we received from companies vying for this bid. True Green came in with the lowest bid. We have worked with them for the past year that I am aware of specifically, and we just wanted to bring that to the mayor and council's attention to see if we can get that renewal. The current contract is set for expiration in July.
So, Mr. Chairman, our present vendor for that is True Green.
Yes, sir.
Seems like the last time this was before us, did we discuss, is this something that's supposed to be bidded out, or was it bidded out, or?
It was bid out, yes, sir.
Okay, so, all right.
But, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But at one point it wasn't bid out. I'm trying to think back to,
I think
I had an issue because
I think
an issue with the process, but.
to my knowledge, the previous renewal, they didn't have a adequate number of bids. I think that was the conflict there. But if there's anything that could be added to it from, so that's the information I have as far as the previous year.
Any other comments? Good. Is this something that we could put on the consent agenda since it's, okay. All right. Madam Mayor, that's all I have tonight under Parks and Recreation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Finance Committee. That's chaired by Mayor Pro Tem Larry Yockey.
Yes. I just have a couple of items.
Just a couple.
Okay. Ms. Callan's going to help us with this. Okay, my first one is A, adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 general fund budget.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. Karen Callan, Finance Director, 6695 Church Street. Before we start through, as you said, we've got many agenda items. Let me recap our budget process for the viewing audience. The budget process is around a 5 to 6 month process. It starts in January. In January, the mayor and council meet for a planning workshop to identify goals and objectives for the city. February through May, meetings are held between directors, city manager, and the finance director. At this time, the directors are making the request to the city manager. The city manager ensures that the departmental requests are justified and are in line with the mayor and council's goals and objectives. Oftentimes, this requires multiple meetings back and forth with the directors and the city manager. Once all this is finalized, available revenues are identified, and the budget is balanced, a proposed budget is presented to the mayor and council during a budget workshop. The workshop was held June 1st and 2nd of this year. The June 1st meetings were held from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. June 2nd meeting from 9 to 12. And lastly, on June 5th, there was a public hearing that was held so the city council could receive citizen input, and then the budget is finalized. The budgets are available online for review, and as we go through the budgets, please let me know if there are any questions before the final vote on Monday night.
Thank you.
So if the first item is the general fund budget, and the total general fund budget is $27,396,187.
Any comments from the city council? Okay, thank you. We'll go on to the next item. Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Conference Center Fund Budget.
That budget is $1,759,685.
My next item is adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Convention and Visitors Bureau Fund Budget.
That budget is $428,774.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Confiscated Asset Fund Budget.
We have two budgets that fall under this. We have the federal portion, which is a $90,000 budget, and a local portion, which is $132,000.
Adopt an ordinance improving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Sanitation Fund Budget.
That budget is $4,115,805.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Multiple Grant Fund Budget.
That budget is $2,943,805.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Rental Car Tax Fund Budget.
$165,000.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 SPLOST Fund Budget.
$10,859,275.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Capital Road Fund Budget.
$316,000.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Public Safety Debt Service Fund Budget.
$1,591,500.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-2018 Conference Center Construction Fund Budget.
$65,000.
Adopt an ordinance approving the fiscal year 2017-28 Public Purpose Corporation Fund Budget.
$543,394.
And my final one is adopt an ordinance approving the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yes, the capital plan is a community planning and fiscal management tool. Capital refers to major expenditures such as land, equipment, and public infrastructure. This 5-year plan is a working document and will be reviewed and updated to reflect changing community needs, priorities, and funding. This helps identify the aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced, eliminates the sharp increases in tax rates, user fees, or debt levels to cover unexpected capital improvements, and balances the desired public improvements with the financial resources that are available.
Okay, thank you very much. Any comments or questions from the City Council and Mayor? If not, that's all I have for tonight, and we'll vote on this come Monday. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Information and Technology Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember Richard Siegel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have one item. Authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with SunGuard Public Sector, LLC, to amend the city's software license and services agreement and the maintenance support agreement with that firm dated June 30th, 2008, to add the One Solution Freedom Premium product. I see Deputy Chief Sue Ann Shaw is going to talk to us about this.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We already have a agreement with SunGuard for this Freedom app that we have on city cell phones. This application allows us to track our officers wherever they're at. Right now, the officers have GPS in their cars, so we know where their cars are. But should they get out of the car, say in a foot chase, and run out into the woods somewhere, if they don't know exactly where they're at, this application would allow us to pinpoint them on a map so we can see exactly where they are. You know, they may say, I'm in the woods off of some street. Well, once you get out there, it's a big world, and when you start looking for them, sometimes it's hard to find them. But this, we've already purchased some licenses, and we were getting ready to purchase more licenses, and the company came back and said, for a little more, we can offer you a site license, which allows unlimited applications. So we can put them on as many phones as we want. And like our motor units, they don't have GPS on their motorcycles or their phones that we can track. This would allow the supervisors to be able to manage scenes better. If they're out on a perimeter looking for somebody in the woods or an area, the supervisors can see exactly where the officers are positioned, so they'll know where to send other officers. It will also allow the detectives to run GCIC from their phones, be able to access reports from their phones. It's just a very convenient and safety important option that we can add for all of our officers that have city cell phones.
Sounds very cool.
It is very cool. I think it'll be a big help.
Any comments from Mayor, Council?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Shaw, I see on the quote here, it shows dates 3/31 of 17 through 9/30 of 17. Is that valid? The quote is valid until then, or is this just for a 6-month period?
It is, the site license is good forever. We just have to pay a maintenance fee every year of $1,920. The quote is good.
So the $12,000 payment is a one-time payment?
Correct.
And then the $1,920 is a yearly maintenance fee?
Correct. And the quote is good through 9/30/17.
I understand. Just a little out of line on the quote there as far as the columns. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? So since there's unlimited use on as many devices as you want, these could also be loaded on their tablets, perhaps, or is that not needed?
I can check on that, but I would think so. This is just an easier way than purchasing them, the apps one or two at a time. And if we get more officers, we would have to come back and purchase more apps. So this way we would have unlimited regardless of the number of officers that we hire and need it for.
I would like to place this on the consent agenda if there's no objection.
Sounds
And
cool. I like
that's
it.
all I have, Madam Mayor.
Very good.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. We'll move on to Maintenance and Sanitation Committee. That's chaired by Councilman Mike Miller.
No items tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Transportation Committee. That's chaired by Councilmember LaShawn Burdanley.
No items, Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Personnel Organization Committee, chaired by Councilman Richard Siegel.
No items tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ordinance and Intergovernmental Committee, chaired by Councilman Mike Miller.
No items tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Education and Training Committee, chaired by Councilmember Samuel Davis.
No items tonight, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other business to come before council members tonight, the board before, from council? Anyone else have anything to bring up? Okay, we'll go on through our agenda. City Attorney, Mr. Joel Dotson.
No items tonight, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Chief Assistant City Attorney, Ms. Susan Littlefeld.
No business, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief of Police, our Deputy Chief, Sue Shaw.
No business, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. City Manager, Ms. Marsha Hampton.
Yes, ma'am. Going back to Parks and Rec, Mr. Chair, Mr. Watts, for your items that were covered under the 5 o'clock meeting that include the Pro Shop remodel, West Pines Greens resurfacing, as well as the Tiger Cubs item, if you have no objection, I will put that on your 6 o'clock meeting for Monday. As it relates to the agreement for the Tiger Cubs, we will just include whatever rate that you have recommended after your meeting with Mr. Landrum and Mr. Jones, unless you have an issue with me including those items for 6 o'clock.
No, ma'am, I don't.
And we will put in some time if you need for 5 o'clock. We do have 5 o'clock fairly packed already. I will list that item first if you need more discussion, so that any item that doesn't need action at your 6 o'clock, we can discuss after the meeting, if that's okay.
Good.
Also, just to, of course, keep the family, including our chief of police, with the passing of his uncle for our zoning board member, Mr. Sparks. Information was sent to you all via email about those arrangements, as well as Ms. Acker, who has a loss in her family as well. Food Truck Mondays will be again on Monday. We do have a town hall meeting next week. Our two council members, Councilman Adams and Miller, 6 p.m. At Hudson's Hickory House. So we invite you all to attend that. And you should be receiving phone calls, if you haven't already, from some community development consultants. So please be prepared to discuss your thought process on your phone calls that you've had on Monday night at 5 o'clock. I will be there with the recommendation. If anyone has any questions in between that time, if they hadn't heard from anyone, please let me know, and I'll provide contact information for you to make certain that your opinions are heard. Yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, may I ask you, this is kind of off the topic. I know we were, I'm sorry, I can't. Councilman Adams and myself were interested in speaking with the TSW, and I noticed we got a notice of a conference call.
Yes, they won't be able to be here. So if you all, the two of you, are meeting to discuss some of the feedback that you had received from your constituents, if you can be here at 4 o'clock on Monday, they will be calling us to go over your concerns from your constituents and some of the comments we've got back on a survey, if you're good with that.
I'm a little concerned that they're not willing to be here. We had some options on dates.
Mr. Miller, Ms. Hampton, I understood we had another appointment at 4 o'clock on Monday, and so I thought our meeting was at 4:30.
You're correct. I'm sorry. I apologize. So there are two meetings. So if you can be here at 4, we'll cover all of those.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that all you have, City Manager? I negated to give an announcement and report about Flag Day. I wanted to thank the city, and especially Chan Weeks and Keep Douglasville Beautiful was an excellent ceremony yesterday for Flag Day. We had out here at the conference center, was well attended, and Councilman Siegel was there. The police department did the presenting of the flag, so we appreciate that. And we have beautiful photos from Sweetwater Camera Club with flags that were distributed all over the city. So it was a very nice ceremony. And I've gotten several texts and calls and Facebook posts about Wednesday Wind Down and how excellent it's been so far the past couple of weeks. I'm going to try to make it next week. Councilman Davis, I had to go to church yesterday, so I missed the Wednesday Wind Down, but I heard it was really, really good. And I attended the Food Truck Mondays. Waited almost 2 hours. I saw Councilman Adams there, 2 hours for the lobster roll. So that is the line to be in for Food Truck Monday. So, but we're doing a lot in the city, and we appreciate all the participation that the citizens are giving us and feedback. So those are the only comments that I had. Now the floor is open from comments from citizens and delegates. If there's anyone who has survived the meeting and wants to say some, oh, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to forget, on my list, I looked down, Juneteenth this weekend.
Yes.
So make certain, so 11 to 7 on Saturday, we have the banquet. Do we have any tickets left, Mr. Davis, for Friday?
I believe there may be 1 or 2 scattered out there.
But it's scarce.
It's scarce. So how
So-
many council members coming?
I know we put tickets in you all's boxes, so if you're interested in going, you have those tickets. So Ms. Sharon is nodding, saying they're there. Mr. Davis said if you need additional, the tickets are scarce.
So if you aren't using them, do we need to give them to Mr. Davis?
Would you like the extra tickets, Mr. Davis?
Yes. Also, I would like to thank other city officials from other cities for coming out on Wednesday, Barron and Union City.
Good.
They're enjoying it.
Very good.
And our packets for Savannah will be on Monday. Okay.
Okay. Comments from citizens and delegates? Okay. Are there any staff reports? All right. Not seeing any. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned.